Hey y'all, welcome to SEGUCATED. Well, welcome to SEGUCATED in another episode. We are so excited to have our special guest here with us. We have Mr. Benjamin Vann. He is the founder and executive director of Impact Ventures. And Impact Ventures is a startup accelerator based in Dallas, Texas. Their mission is to eliminate the social and economic barriers for underrepresented women and entrepreneurs of color by launching high-growth businesses and social enterprises. Welcome to the show, Benjamin.
Hey Sheila, glad to be here. Great to be able to connect in these ways, in these times. So thanks for having me.
For sure. Thanks for being on the show. So our first question to you, Ben, is just, can you tell us about Impact Ventures and what your organization is all about?
Yes, we'll try to do this in the short time that we have here. But as you mentioned, our mission is to eliminate the social and economic barriers for underrepresented. We like to say underestimated now, because we love to talk about our community in a more positive light and I guess from a standpoint of strength. So we support underestimated entrepreneurs and specifically working and growing high growth businesses. And really this is centered around addressing the racial wealth gap in the United States. Our vision and our mission was birthed out of an idea that if you gave people the opportunity and the tools and resources to create and control and change their future, we would have that's better for the society as a whole. And so we've been working since 2017 we started building a community that didn't exist in Dallas. And so we just recently launched our first fellowship cohort where we have 17 entrepreneurs or 18 entrepreneurs that we're currently working with in our program. We have both a growth track and a startup track for different stages of entrepreneurs. And they get access to, we like to say coaching, curriculum, capital, connection, and community through the program. And this is really about building wealth, not only for the individuals, but for families and communities, and being able to do that through the vehicle of entrepreneurship. So that's what we're all about.
That is dope. We actually have known each other for years, and just being able to see the growth of what you've been able to build with Impact Ventures has just been awesome. Just to see your journey and from, starting it all the way to where you guys are at now. And so that's just amazing. Can you kind of explain, how did you become inspired to start Impact Ventures?
Yeah. So this is, I would like to say this is, we've been working for 3 years, but this has definitely been a decade and plus vision, probably a lifetime vision for me. I like to start, with, my family history being a fifth generation entrepreneur, originally from Wichita, Kansas, where I was born and raised. And we met in Washburn University. For me personally, seeing my father, my grandmother, who was one of the first women pastors in the PAW back in that time when women weren't allowed to lead in churches, and then also was an entrepreneur as a seamstress. Her slogan was sewing souls for the kingdom. She would make all of our Easter outfits and our Christmas outfits and reversible vests and stuff like that she would make. But as the industries changed through industrial revolution, things would shift businesses to where minorities couldn't compete, right? And whether that be through access to capital or just having the tools and resources or the social networks to be able to compete, at a scale that others are, just wasn't accessible. And for me, it was really a personal journey of entrepreneurship being in my blood. And in my family, we kind of go two ways. You either an entrepreneur or clergy, right? Okay. And sometimes I feel like I'm doing both. I feel like I'm
Yeah.
doing the Lord's work most of the time as a mission-driven entrepreneur. And for me, it didn't start that way. So I spent a lot of my early career and mid-career in finance. I worked at Fidelity. Actually moved from Kansas to Texas, originally from banking, and just found that the opportunities for growth and the opportunities for advancement just weren't there. There was no one that looked like me in senior leadership. So if I couldn't see myself in anyone there, there wasn't really a pathway for me to get there. That's what I saw. And working in different industries. So from finance, I went to fundraising, working for a national land trust organization, ran an organization for 2.5 years in Dallas that focused on retaining African American talent. It's called Dallas Black Professional Social Network. That's kind of where I got a lot of the bumps and bruises and scrapes on how to run a business and how to build coalitions and how to build partnerships. And that really afforded me an opportunity to really see Dallas from just like this 30,000 foot up view, and afforded me at a very young age to be kind of at the nexus of a lot of decisions that were being made in the city, a lot of movements that are being started off in the city. But what I saw is that no one was focusing on the wealth gap, particularly with developing minority entrepreneurs.
Mhm.
Um, and when you think about the just the change in society, when you say technology, and I know sometimes for our community, technology can be this scary word, but technology could just literally mean a different way that we do things. Technology is not always about electricity or something being plugged in or a computer or something digital. Technology is really about the means and how you do something, like how you deliver something. And so when you talk about access to building wealth, the barrier to entry is a lot lower due to the cost, right?
Right.
When we had computers in a big room where you needed a whole office space for one computer, that costs a lot of money, so we couldn't compete. Now we can launch a business from our cell phone, from our fingertips, right? And
Yes.
so now there's no excuses to not do it. However, doing it is not enough, right? There has to be an ecosystem for that business, for that person to thrive. And that's where we started, was building that ecosystem, connecting that ecosystem, making sure that, as they say, it takes a family to raise a child, it takes a community to raise a startup, right?
Yes.
And you can have a great idea all day, but if the environment is not built to support that idea, it'll never thrive, right? That's why you see places like Silicon Valley, they thrive because they have a great education department. I mean, the smartest people in the world are coming out of these colleges and universities, and they're getting fast tracked into these companies and other ecosystems that aren't as developed. It just looks different. Texas won't be a Silicon Valley, or other places in the Midwest won't be as, and that's fine, right? And so me, I to call myself as a social entrepreneur. I don't believe that the traditional venture model works for Black and Brown communities. That's not our goal. We've always been a ecocentric people. We've always been focused on the community. It's always been we versus me. We've always cared for our elderly, for our young. We've always held on to our stories. We've always kept traditions, right? And so business and cooperative economics, that can be carried out um, in business, not just in traditional business, but in high growth business as well. I'll give an example of Dawn Dickinson, founder of PopCon. She could have went out and raised $1 million on her own, but what she did was she opened up a equity crowdfunding opportunity to get other Black and Brown folks and women to invest in her business, to participate in wealth building activity. And oftentimes we don't get the opportunities to participate in wealth building opportunities. And so um, right now, as an organization, as we're focusing on training and developing entrepreneurs, right now, just recently accepted into the Boston Impact Initiative, is building this fund to be able to invest not only in them, but then allow any individual who is a non-accredited investor to be able to also invest in that fund to participate in wealth building opportunities, because it's about the collective versus this capitalism mindset. So that's
Yes.
where we got on how I got here, and it's been a fun, bumpy, exciting, scary. Like, that's entrepreneurship, the roller coaster. You understand, as an entrepreneur,
Yes.
you've been through it. But I wouldn't trade it for anything, and we're exactly where we need to be. And I think just to go into the COVID-19, because I know we'll talk about that, but
Yes.
shed a light on our work that's proven. It's highlighted why our work is even more critical to support underrepresented entrepreneurs, because the access to wealth is such a critical thing. Um,
Yes.
22 million people are unemployed or filing for unemployment right now. If they don't have a mortgage that they can take out a second lien on, or a second mortgage on to make ends meet, if they don't have a 401k that they can borrow against to kind of float them up, if they don't have a rich Uncle Ned, to hold them over, or a lot of times we don't have things like that, and
The
so
tools, right?
right. So it's crucial that we don't just focus on income, but we focus on like assets as well.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, that is definitely, great advice. And I just love, what you guys are doing there in Dallas and beyond
Yes,
with just building that ecosystem for, and I love that term, not underrepresented, underestimated
underestimated.
entrepreneurs. I love that. I love that. Yeah, so that kind of brings us to our next topic here. Right now, we are at the end of April, and we are in a worldwide pandemic when it comes to COVID-19 and the coronavirus. It is affecting everyone all over the world right now. And when it comes to our underestimated entrepreneurs and business owners and in our country, COVID-19 has definitely been impacting the business world, economics, and some of our most vulnerable entrepreneurs. And so, when I did a little bit of research and kind of looking into the numbers, because the numbers are still, I mean, they're happening right before our eyes, and the stats are coming out right before our eyes, but we do know that the two types of Black-owned businesses, the top two types of Black-owned businesses, are in the service and the health industries, which are two very high touch
Hmm.
industries. And so when you think about high touch with the coronavirus, they are high risk industries. And then furthermore, we have 2.6 million Black owned businesses in the United States, and 2.5 million of those Black owned businesses have no employees.
Right.
So that creates a little bit of an issue because the funding, emergency funding that has become available for businesses through the government, actually, the loans are tied to forgiveness with paying your employees and
Full
having a
time employees,
payroll,
right?
full-time employees and having payroll. So that becomes an issue if you don't have those employees. And so, from your perspective and what you do on a daily basis, what have you seen how COVID-19 has been impacting our underestimated entrepreneurs and minority businesses so far?
Well, you've definitely pointed to some very pointed stats around, just how 99, almost 98% of our businesses are sole proprietorships in terms of not having employees and not being able to qualify, for those funds. When you think about even just a traditional sense without COVID-19, minority owned businesses are denied 2 to 3 times more loans for loans than their white counterparts.
Mhm.
When we talk about equity, we know that less than 2% of private investment and venture capital goes to minorities, and less than 1% of that goes to women. Less than 0.0006 of that goes to Black women, right? So across the capital landscape, there's a huge, gap. And so when our government doesn't prioritize, because our government is built and is here for the infrastructure of communities, right, and of people, right, and typically of its most vulnerable individuals, should be considered as frontline employees or frontline, or first responders, right?
Right.
And typically, when we think about first responders, we only think about those who are, doing, homeless shelters and medical folks and firefighters and small
Mhm.
business owners, specifically the ones that are in the service-based industry. They are frontline. They are first. They are first responding,
Yes.
to the need of the individuals. Um, the grocery stores, the mom and pop grocery stores in communities where there are no major grocery stores, right? Where they do their grocery shopping at,
The
the
corner
gas station,
store.
the corner store,
Yes.
right? Like that's reality for some folks. even the communities that I live in, in Dallas, I see it all the time. And I think the biggest impact that we've seen from this COVID-19 is that it definitely shows where our values align as a nation, right? That's kind of like the macro view it in terms of, we're prioritizing corporate bailout over, like community lives, the lives of our citizens. And that's not right, but I do understand the burden of leadership and the decisions that have to be made. But I think overall the program could have been rolled out a little bit better and more efficient, but that's a big undertaking for the program. So for minorities, typically underrepresented or underestimated business owners, I think not having a strong relationship with your bankers or your lenders really put us at a disadvantage. And I think that's just from due to lack of knowledge and no one there to tell us that we need to email our banker or keep in regular contact or touch
Mhm.
with the folks who are handling our money. The
And
fact that we are right,
lack of
right,
trust sometimes too, because even for myself, as soon as I started seeing this information, of course I call my bank.
right,
Well, I had went through this very long process over a year ago to get an SBA loan. So I already had built those
that
relationships. And
relationship.
so
Yeah,
when I came, but it took months and months for me to build that relationship with the bank. That took a little while, but we built it. And so when I came back, they understood, all about my business. And of course, they've already invested, and so they want to make sure that we're okay and we're doing okay during this time and we get as much
yeah,
help as we need. But that did come up about, how our business is structured, how, I have several part-time employees, how I have fewer full-time employees, and how I take an owner's draw for myself and I'm not even on my own payroll. So when it
right.
came to being able to get these funds, all of these problems came up to where I was like, well, if I would
I
have
wish
known
I had
this,
known. Right,
and who could prepare for something like this? But
right,
to be honest, when you're coming from an environment and where your family and people that you are the closest to growing up and coming up in this world that we're not business owners, these things are not talked about,
right.
so you're
Nor do
learning
we
as you
trust
go.
banks. We
Right.
keep our money in a safe or mattress.
Mhm.
Some people do that because they don't
Mhm.
trust banks. They're like, I'm not putting my, Big Mama
Or
is not putting her money in the
we don't
bank.
even want to get into a loan situation with the bank either,
Or I don't
because
want to take on debt
that's
because someone
yes.
has convinced them that a loan is a bad thing, right?
Yeah, and I had to get out of that mind state myself. I was trying to do everything within, the means of what we could afford within the business. What revenue was coming in, that's what I had to
Right.
invest back into the
No,
business and to
it's all
pay into
about
the business.
leverage, right? But we're
Right.
not we're not taught leverage, right? You leverage debt, you leverage equity, you leverage cash.
Right.
OPM, other people's money, is the best thing to use when you're starting a business, when you're doing anything. But those are things that we're not taught generationally, and
And
so
it's
I think,
scary. It's
yeah,
scary if you don't know and if you don't get the right information and if you don't have people that you can trust, like you were saying, in an ecosystem,
yeah,
and a community of people that you can trust and trust that that information is going to be for the good
yeah.
of you and your family and your business.
One of the other major things I think that I feel like is an issue that we're not, maybe we're just looking at it through the wrong lens, but because there's 98% of minority businesses that are sole proprietorships, meaning that they own a job, right?
Right.
So that's 2.5 million jobs, right? And so if we're talking about workforce and we're talking about keeping people employed, they should be included in that situation of,
Right.
okay, this is workforce, right? Because those 1099 employees, they have to pay taxes,
Yep.
right? So it's we have to look at things and we have to challenge our leadership from a government, city, et cetera standpoint, the advocates, the people that are speaking for us in these rooms, to really consider all the options in the ways that we might be overlooking certain things, like, oh, because you have 1099, that means they're not, valuable, right? Not everybody that's a 1099 employee makes $8 an hour, right?
Right.
People put food on their family's table by being a 1099. That's just maybe the way they prefer. Maybe they prefer their own schedule. Maybe they prefer doing the work that they do in the way they know how to do it. Like, there's a ton of reasons why someone would be a 1099 employee over an FTE, a W-2 employee, and we
Right.
shouldn't penalize them, for doing so. But this is a workforce issue, and we should
Yes.
be considering that 2.5 to say, how do we improve the Black workforce? Because we know that the majority of the Black workforce is going to be 1099 folks
Hmm.
that are
Hmm.
running these businesses. And so,
Oh yeah,
but
and
I
then
think
it
some
impacts their
local,
families. You know what
right,
I'm saying? And so
generations
that 2.5, triples and quadruples when it comes to the number of people that are being, then
impacted by it.
impacted.
Hmm.
Right, right. So, that's just it's just great to be able to talk to somebody who has the unique and diverse experience that you have to be able to speak on this topic because it is something that's happening right, before our eyes. The next topic, we'll dive into is just looking at the digital realm of everything
Hmm.
that's going on right now. We are a social media marketing agency, and being the owner of SEG Media, I'm able to really see how digital marketers and tech businesses are really in high demand right now.
Hmm.
People ask me, how are you guys holding up right now? I'm like, we're busier than we've ever been because all of our clients really, really need us like right now. And, things are changing right before our eyes, and they have to stay connected to their audience. They have to grow their audience. They have to try to keep this revenue coming in. And so now, when everything is kind of heightened to where businesses are like, we have to communicate, everybody's being bombarded with
Right. I'm getting so
advertisements and
many emails
messages.
now. I'm like,
Right. Now y'all want to
nonstop.
communicate. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So now the
Now you see
value.
me.
Right, right. Now the value of digital marketing, has just really been put at the forefront for a lot of these more brick and mortar, traditional types
Oh
of
yeah.
businesses. They're really seeing the importance of the digital marketing. And we know that with Impact Ventures, you guys focus on high impact startups in the tech field. And we just want to know, what is your advice when it comes to aspiring entrepreneurs that are looking to start up a business in the tech industry right now, or maybe even businesses that are already established who are thinking about pivoting, more
Hmm.
into the tech field?
Yeah. So I'd like, I talked about it a little bit around the word technology, and you have to first break down this. You have to demystify what being a tech business is, right?
Right,
A business is solving a human need, right? There's a human out there on the other end that's receiving your product or service, that has a pain point, and you are solving that pain point in a economically efficient way, right? That's
right,
what a business is. How you do that is where the technology comes in, right? And so, I encourage those who are looking to get into the tech industry and this COVID-19 has exposed this situation, is that understanding that technology is not the solution, but it's the means, right? And
right,
so you first have to solve a problem that's worth solving, right? And that people will pay for you to solve that problem. Um, for example, there's a lot of niche businesses out there, especially in the technology industry. There's these social apps, these gimmick things, these things out there that aren't necessarily a necessity. And then situations like COVID-19 really kind of put things in perspective to say, like, essential businesses are will always be in play, right? There'll always be a market for essential businesses. So, is your business essential in terms of, are you solving a real human problem and human need? And starting there, then you can go and build and spend all the money you can to develop a business. But we like to say, when Impact Ventures is designed with community in mind, and so we use a lot of design thinking frameworks, which is basically a creative problem solving process. It's not some magical thing when people talk about design thinking. It's literally just taking how people naturally think creatively and putting that into a framework, and then putting a creative spin on it that allows you to do it in a way that's non-traditional. For example, it could be, um, you could do with sticky notes, right? For example, people use, let's say, product development. You're developing a product, and you go out and you buy this high-end software so you can develop your product roadmap, and you can literally go in your bathroom or in an office or a room in your house, your living room, get sticky notes, and you can literally put those on your wall, and then that's your project management for your product development. Like, it's not always this, like, I got to do this high tech thing. So my advice, would be, like, first solve a human problem and understand that problem. And by understanding that problem, which you highlight a little bit about this need for digital marketing and for this digital aspect, is that you should always be talking to your clients, right? You should always be talking to your users and getting feedback on what they need, because their needs are going to change, right? The problem that you're trying to solve is always going to be there, right? That's why you're in business. But how you solve that problem will always change. But oftentimes business owners get stagnant and they get hung up on their one solution that they feel like is the right fit for that problem. And when technology changed, when
A pandemic
externalities change,
hits.
like a pandemic, they're like, "Oh shoot, I probably should have." And this puts us at a disadvantage. Like going back to the equity part, this puts us at a disadvantage for mom and pop restaurants who, the family's been operating it for 30 years.
Right.
Um, they don't even have. They're not on Google. You can't find them on Google Maps. They don't have a website.
They don't have an
Uh,
email
they don't
list.
have an email list.
They haven't thought about online ordering
Right.
or, any kind of thing like that, because people have always been able to,
Yep.
do it the old way,
hmm So it's not always building the latest blockchain technology platform. Sometimes it's um Jimmy's Catfish saying, you know what, we just launched our online page. We can
Right.
serve our community digitally now. Now we're taking online orders. Just
Yes.
little tweaks like that where technology can be implemented, and being more, we like to say, tech enabled business versus tech driven business. And there's a distinct difference between the two, but understanding which one you are, and then knowing that, understand how you can actually, what your roadmap looks like in the future. Like, should you be raising venture capital? Should you be raising debt capital? That all determines, the approach you take. So in this age, every business is a tech company, right?
Right. Yeah,
Every
true
business
that.
is a tech company or has tech. And if you don't,
Yes.
I'm sorry, but you're going to, you're
You
going to
need
miss
it.
out.
You need it. And I mean, we even with our own clients, I mean, we serve a lot of locally owned small businesses. And we have a client that's a barber college in Topeka. And, when all of this happened, it changed the whole structure of how they do business, because it's like, well, their business is educating, the next generation, the future of barbers in
hmm
barbering. And so they had to take all their classes online and be able to offer those classes online so those students can still continue to learn in their own home without having to go into the facility. And how do you do that when you're used to being able to show them in person? How can
hmm
I even do this? We were able to be there, because we had started working with them months prior, and to be able to help them with that transition. You know what I'm saying? And so just in so many instances, you're so right. Like, being able to have the tech integrated into your business, like every business has to have
hmm
tech integrated into their business, or they're not going to be in business for very long,
hmm
because everything, with the social distancing and everything that's going on, it's not the future, it's like the now. It's like something that is vital, for your business right now. And so
We have to
um
emphasize it. I mean, the old school, like how you would philosophize, I guess, every business and the elements they need to have in terms of focus. Like, you have people, you have purpose, you have your processes, right? You have your platform or you have your product, but technology is another element that, like, you have to invest in. Like, it's no longer just you start your business and then now you have, like, okay, my telephone, my, how it used to be, where it's like, when you talk about IT, it was like, all right, our IT services, we have our telecommunications, we have our fax, we have our email
what's a
address, we have the
fax anymore?
internet, like, and then from a marketing standpoint, it was, okay, we got print, we got newspaper, we got, now it's like technology is it's transforming across all those things in terms of, like, the people part, how you communicate as a team, right? All
Yes.
these companies have their own internet, they have their own, things like Slack, things like, Microsoft for
Yes.
Teams that people are using. I mean, technology hits all those different elements, processes. You know,
Yes.
now instead of us having to meet in a room physically, now we can use um Microsoft Planner or Asana as a project
Yes.
management tool to keep us all, moving
Yes.
forward. So technology should be integrated in every part of your business, and I think that should be every entrepreneur's kind of like uh, inventory assessment of their own business. Like while we're in this pandemic, is saying like, how am I supporting? How is technology supporting my business in every aspect of my company,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
if it's not, I need to invest in that.
For sure, for sure. That is so vital right now. And so we're kind of talking about pivoting into those areas. And you're talking about taking an inventory of how tech is working in your business, working for your business. And so when it comes to pivoting, I think that that's kind of been a buzzword right now in with businesses right now. It's pivoting your business or figuring out how you can still keep your business running during this COVID-19 pandemic we're in. And so you were talking about, just can you elaborate a little bit more on some of the changes that businesses should be considering right now
Yeah.
to be able to survive and or just pivot to be in a better position?
I think first, when we talk about pivoting or changing something, I think you first have to know what you're good at and kind of know what your core services are, your core product is. And once you know that, then I think you can add features, right? And so I think that's what companies should be thinking about. Small business owners should be thinking about what features can I add, because this is a freak, you know, um, the last time
Yeah,
this
you would never
happened.
think that something like this is not in anyone's
It's
business
not a
plan.
norm, right? Right. So
Right.
these things should be considered as features and options in secondary markets and new channels, that you should be selling through. Or maybe there's an untapped market that you didn't have before that now this digital piece allows you to tap into that market. But I don't think business owners should be 100% 180 flipping their business model and say, oh, now we're pivoting to this, right? Because then you
Yeah.
get away from your core and what your services are and what you do. And then you lose your customers are like, wait a minute, wait, we're still here. We just need to
Yes.
be served in a different way,
Right.
right? So I think at the core of it, it's really understanding what you're good at and what your company is great at. The book Good to Great talks about your hedge cog concept, what you're good at, or what you're great at, what the world needs, what you love to do, and what the world will pay for, right?
Mhm.
And all those intersections, if that's what you do in the middle, figure out what are the unique features you can add to that to do the same thing, but just deliver it in a different way.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
not necessarily transforming the business, upside down, but more so thinking like, how can I do this in the same way? So if I teach classes in person, or if I'm a service-based business industry, I'm a financial advisor, how can I still give the same quality service to my clients in a different way? Maybe it's digitally, maybe it's FaceTime. You want to create that, maybe FaceTime is more personal than Zoom. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Yeah.
And their clients really want that personal, touch. My phone is much more personal than I can't carry my laptop around in my pocket. So,
Right.
just thinking different around how do you continue to deliver the same service in a different way.
Oh
So,
yeah, and it's useful in all different industries. I mean, I have just been sitting back and watching so many different businesses that I've been following and brands that I've been following, for years and years, and just seeing how they're reacting during this time and what they're changing. And I've been really impressed by a local salon here that's doing virtual consultations, and they're marketing to
oh,
women and
yeah.
saying, "Hey, we know y'all still have to be on Zoom, for work and everything. And so we know we can't actually do it for you, but we can do a consultation. We can even help you do some of these things. We'll do eyebrow consultations, like all these things that, it's still important to us women, and it's like to be able to offer that in a virtual sense and for them to be able to still serve their clients. I mean, that's is a perfect example. And there's so many examples across the board of so many different industries and different types of businesses that are, like you said, definitely not a time to just flip your business
Right.
all the
I see so
way,
many people doing that. They're like, and then not only are they doing it, but they're spending resources
Oh
into
yeah.
doing that.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like that's not your sweet spot. Let another company figure that out.
Yes.
Just
Yes.
continue to serve your clients in a way that reaches them, that reflects the times that we're in.
Yes, and
But
integrating the tech piece. So, yes, I love that. And so one of the stats that you have on your website, which tell everybody how they can find you guys on social media and on your website so that they can check you guys out.
Definitely. So we are on all social media. That's Facebook. Well, all social media. There's a ton of platforms out there, but the main platforms we're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn and Medium. But you could find us at Impact Venture Co. On social media, and then you can also find us on the web at impact-ventures.co, and it's .co, not .com, for our website. But yeah, connected with us there. We're probably more active on Instagram. So if you're Instagram out there, follow us on social media, engage with us there. We'll be doing our demo day soon, actually May 30th. We're going to be launching that announcement on this Friday, actually tomorrow.
All right.
So you all will be able to tune in live to see some of our founders pitch their
Yes.
startups. So
That's awesome. And when you say that you guys are serving Dallas or North Texas and beyond, kind of just tell us what is the beyond part? How does that
yeah.
work?
So our first cohort, we had 164 applicants. 40, I'm sorry, 100 and sorry, the numbers just escaped me now. Um, I want to say 97 of those businesses were from North Texas. I think 143 were from Texas, and I think the remaining 30 or 40 were from like around the country as well as international. And so this COVID-19 situation has kind of expedited our vision that we kind of already had, was for us to be kind of like a national, have a national presence. Um, but this COVID-19 situation has really given us the opportunity to say, you know what, if we continue, or if we serve our clients in a different way, not completely we're not going to start making cheeseburgers now, because people are hungry. We're still serving entrepreneurs because they need the support, guidance, mentorship, access to capital that they need. But we can do that in a different way that allows us to source entrepreneurs, high impact entrepreneurs, from across anywhere, whether it be across US based or international based. And so our vision has always been to be Dallas based, but globally focused. And so this is just about that, setting that vision and then just moving towards that vision as you progress. In our program currently, we have a company from San Antonio in the program, and we have another one from Colorado currently in the program. So we're already kind of prototyping that and what that looks like for them. Because the thing about high growth businesses that I think if entrepreneurs are watching this, if you're wanting to get into the high growth business industry, and that doesn't have to be tech, it can be consumer products. So we focus on consumer products as well. But if you're in that industry, your customer is anywhere. So you have to get out of the mindset that if I'm in Dallas, I'm just serving Dallas or I'm just serving North Texas, right? So in order to attack a market of that size, right? Because in the high growth, it's about market share, right? In order to attack a market that size, you have to have other channels and other markets that you're dipping into, right? So you have to have relationships in New York. You have to have relationships in LA if that's where your business is going to thrive, right? You could be Dallas
Right.
based because it's cost efficient, right? You can get more bang for your buck here. If you raise venture capital other places, you can spend that less. You can spend that more efficiently by being based in Dallas. But a part of that, like relationships, is that you need those other relationships to be able to get that market. Like if you're doing a Black woman's hair care product, right? In order to be considered a high growth businesses and be worthy of venture capital, you're going to need to be selling in Atlanta, in Baltimore. Like you need to know where all the hot spots where there's heavily populated by Black women. Like if
Right.
that's your clientele,
Right.
right?
Right.
So that means in your mind frame, you should be thinking of like, okay, who do I know or who can I find on LinkedIn to get me into that market, in that market? And so I think it's kind of removing these barriers of like state lines or
Hmm.
these barriers that my customer is only the person in front of me. And technology is the driver.
Yes,
to
yes, yes.
do that. One of the things that's special about this second phase of our work with the Boston Impact Initiative is that they brought this fellowship brought 26 leaders from across the country from 12 different cities, major cities, and we're all have the same goal in mind to build this kind of like racial equity focused investment fund. Those are 12 markets that we'll have access to now for our entrepreneurs to say, all right, you're looking to get into Philly, Atlanta, Baltimore, New York. We have relationships there for our program to be able to get people into access to other mentors and other investors that are in those cities, other distribution channels. They're trying to get into Whole Foods. You're trying to get into Sally's, to Paul Mitchell, like all those
Yeah.
the things that we need to be considering. But if we're only thinking in terms of like, let me serve my local neighborhood, the high growth, that part will never happen. And there's a need for both high growth and kind of lifestyle businesses
Hmm.
in the market. They both are equally important.
Yeah, that's really good. That's really good. So definitely to anyone listening and watching right now, Impact Ventures, if you're an aspiring entrepreneur with a startup idea or you already have a business, you could definitely should check them out and see what type of opportunities there are for you to work together with Impact Ventures. And so the last question that I had for you is just on your website, a stat that really stuck out to me. And of course, because it is me, that white men actually raise 36 times more in venture capital than Black women. And so, with your expertise and what you do on a day to day, what would you say are the essentials for us underrepresented or underestimated business owners to successfully securing the bag when it comes to venture capital and funding?
Well, I think it first starts with, now I'm going to the clergy side, the preacher side of it is, study to show thyself approved, right?
Yeah.
So first, knowing the game that you're playing is important. If you don't know the rules of the game, you've already lost, right? And so a lot of times we don't want to study the rules of the game. I'm guilty. We're all guilty. How many times have we
Yes.
sat down? I mean, to this day, I don't know how to play Uno because I don't want to read the rules, right?
Yes.
I will sit down and play Monopoly and with the family. We will. I don't think anyone in my family, and that is a family tradition of ours. I don't think anybody in my family has ever actually read the rules of Monopoly. It's
Yeah.
just a human habit. I mean, I don't know what it is, but we don't want to study. So, but understanding the game of venture capital is essential because once you understand the rules of the game, then you know what the levers are, right? And the levers are pull, and you know what's needed, and you know what it looks for. So, venture capital is a very different industry when it's focused on speed to market and growth, right? Like those are essential in that market. The challenge is doing that in a way that's equitable to a founder to where they don't end up on the short side of the stick in ownership of their company, right? Because the venture and the equity capital is all about ownership of the company. And so studying, understanding the landscape, reading books, getting mentors, like understanding the whole landscape, the terminology, all those things are essential to just being able to come to the table. Like just that's just getting to zero, right?
Right, right.
Then when you get to zero, it's about understanding what are the things that's needed in venture capital, which is very different than private equity, which is very different than your lifestyle business with debt. So when you think about like, let's look at the size of companies. So um, I'm a finance guy, so think about like your Fortune 100, Fortune 50 company, these big companies. Their financials are probably going to have like, so when I was at Fidelity, I would do monthly reporting, like 150 page, like monthly PowerPoints on financials, right? So that's like
Mm.
at the highest level of like rigor that's needed. If you could probably equate that to like private equity in finance in terms of the complexity of finance. When you go to lower middle market companies like 2 to 5 million, um, maybe you need 5 to 10 years of financial, or maybe even 15 to 20 years of financial, right? And then you go down to small business, which technically the definition of small business is like 1
Under,
million.
yeah.
Right. Really under 500 employees, but at $1 million of revenue, you're still considered a small business, right?
Hmm.
And then you got micro enterprise, which is like 50 employees or less, which is the category that we kind of dwell in, that micro enterprise, and understanding that in venture, it's more about execution than it is around like projections and planning and things like that. So, from an investor standpoint, if you're looking to raise venture capital, you need to operationalize that financial ask. And what I mean by that is like if you're raising $500,000, I need to see a plan of action that ties along with what you're going to do to get that market share and actually expedite growth at the same rate that you're spending money,
Hmm.
right? That's
Hmm.
very different than if you got, say, I go get a $500,000 loan from a
Right.
company. I mean, I could take my time as long as I'm paying my monthly payment. I could take my time, right? And so in the venture world, it's about speed to market, and the size of the market share that you're getting. But you have to understand, like, it's about execution, right? And so, what goes into execution? Like, you have to have a great team. You have to you have to have a well, first you have to have a great idea and a problem worth solving, right? And a problem that's big enough, right? From a B standpoint, like $1 billion industry, knowing that you might only get 0.5% of that share of that market, right? But that's still great, right? If Jeff Bezos owns 12% of his company, but would you rather have 12% of 100, billion or whatever Amazon is
Right.
worth? I don't know.
Right.
Would you rather have 12% of that or 12% of nothing? You know what I mean? So,
Right.
and so understanding ownership, really understanding the value of ownership and how ownership works, and then being legally, like, having all the dots checked in terms of your legal structure, because a lot of
Right.
times people don't understand the legal side of raising venture capital is that you have to actually file like with the SEC to even say you're going to raise like a price round of venture capital, and that comes with just knowing the industry, right? But if you don't have a lawyer, right, or if you don't have
Right.
capital to file, you can't you can't do that anyway. Like, I mean, even doing
Right.
equity crowdfunding, you have to file like Form D with like you have to do these necessary things. But if you're not incorporated, you're still a sole proprietor or just a Facebook page, and you don't have any legal structure. No investor is going to be able to invest their money
Right.
in your
Right.
business, whether it be angel or institution or whatever. So those are the things that like I feel like we can do, that we can control, right, on our end in terms of actively raising capital. But then also understanding that every investor is not your investor. So understanding like what type of investor do I need? What's their risk tolerance? What's their personality? Are they an investor that's going to be calling me every week saying, "Did you do this? Did you do this? Did you do that?"
Right.
Right? Are they consistent? Are they someone who sometimes get caught in the details? If you have an investor that's saying you need to revamp your whole website and your branding looks off, that's probably not the best investor that you need. Like, that's not their job to do that. They're looking at high
Hmm.
level strategic, compliance, like making sure that financial management is in order. They're not digging into the weeds of, I mean, they might do that if they have that as a background and as a value add. um,
Right.
but that's where you get consultants and team and build team members and hire employees
Hmm.
to do those things. But so that's, I think, what we can do in terms of approaching raising capital. But then there's also an ecosystem problem challenge that what's called pattern recognition has been heavily influenced in the venture capital industry. And there are certain triggers that typically will give investors typically the prediction of success for a founder, right? And we know what those triggers are, like white, male, heterosexual, went to Ivy League school, right? Or any school in the in
Yeah.
California.
Yeah.
Uh,
And yeah, and a lot of us, underestimated entrepreneurs. We a lot of times knock down doors by character. You know what
mhm.
I'm saying? And
Yep,
I know
characters are
even for
huge.
myself, that's how I was able to obtain an SBA loan. They straight up told me it's not because of the collateral, it's because of the character, and we
Hmm.
believe that you're going to be able to do what you're saying you're going to do, and you're already doing it without the help. So with some help, we know that you can continue, to grow. And so, I mean, I think that that is something that's very real for us, that,
Hmm.
that character piece, but that character can only take you so far.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to have the skill, right?
Right, right,
You
right.
have to have the skill.
The
But I
skill
mean,
and the information, just like what you're sharing and what you guys do, at Impact Ventures, as far as creating that ecosystem and,
mhm.
providing that infrastructure and the information that's vital to the growth.
It's a two-pronged strategy. You have like the entrepreneurs on the ground that are working to do what they need to do necessary, but then investors have to take ownership of the ecosystem and say, you know what, there needs to be more Black and brown and women investors, right, that understand the and shared experience of these entrepreneurs, that don't see them with this bias, that say, you know what, okay, they didn't go to Harvard, he went to Washburn, right?
Mm-hmm.
But look what he's doing now. He's working with people that went to Harvard. He's leading people. People that
Right,
went to these schools are working for him. You know what I mean? Like those are the intangibles that don't show up on a balance sheet,
right.
that you can't read. And so we have to. It's both problems. It's the ecosystem, and it's on the ground in the community. And I think if both of those can come together, which we're seeing a lot. I mean, there's a lot of Black and brown investors popping up, VCs popping up. You see a lot more diversity focused funds. Um, there needs to be more capital. There needs to be more capital. I like to say they need to keep the same energy. As much
Yeah,
as institutional racism has kept us out, they need to have that same energy with undoing, what
that's
was
for
what was
sure.
done. Whether that be through venture capital, or whether that be through public, investment in terms of like redlining and things like that happened to us, because we know that land was the foundation of wealth building.
Right, right.
Land and home ownership was the foundation of wealth building. And so we need to have that same energy in undoing these barriers and these social equities, to see us in a better place where we feel like our economy is reflective of the world, of diversity in our world. That's our vision statement, to build an economy, a more equitable, inclusive economy that's reflective of diversity in our world. So that's
Right.
that's what we're looking to do, and I'm excited. It's exciting. It's an exciting time to be Black and to be a business owner right now, because we are. Well, I'll say y'all are. Black women are the fastest growing
Oh, yes.
population of entrepreneurs
Woo-hoo.
over the last decade. So I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, working with y'all get it done. It's like a lot of the Black women entrepreneurs that I mentor, when I give them feedback, like they execute and they come back and say, okay, I did this and I added this on it, and then what do you think? They come back with like all the things. Uh,
It's very historic, and I mean, you can go all the way back and looking at, Madam C.J. Walker is a really big, it's she's buzzing right now, and she
mhm.
ain't. It's nothing new, right? But just looking at, her entrepreneurial spirit and how much she has inspired so many, and we can go on and on, Ben. But I just
Yeah.
thank you for what
No,
you're
thanks for
doing,
having me. Yes,
and
this is fun.
just being able to really be able to lean into your purpose and what you're doing, because you could have taken that finance background
Oh yeah.
and just set up in an office, get your check,
I
and
think
do what
about
you
it all the
need to, right?
time.
But instead, you've taken your finance background and your diverse experiences and put it into something that's so great and impacts so many more people than you ever would, working,
Right.
in a different capacity. So I
Yep.
thank you for that. And thank you for being on the show today.
Appreciate it.
And thank you all for listening. And until next time.
Love it.